Welcome back, everybody. Episode 7.
Man, we made it this far. Really can't believe it.
I didn't think we would make it this far, especially after how many times I got yelled at for drinking a beverage.
Well, lucky number 7. Let's get started. Tell us, what the fuck's going on in the world?
Well, I think everyone's been talking about this Dillon Dannis and Logan Paul fight. I saw a bunch of videos. I didn't see the fight itself. I'm not a big boxing fan, but because it's a YouTuber fight, there's a lot of buzz around it. And for the last 3 months, everyone has been talking about it.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't realize that fight hadn't happened yet because, there's so much coverage around it for so much time. Like, I was listening to, what's this podcast? Flagrant?
Yeah.
And they had Dillon Dannis on there. They had Logan Paul on there. And I wasn't invested until I heard the one with Dillon Dannis in it. And I'm like, man, I just want to know, right? Like, can this guy back up all the shit he was just talking?
Spoiler.
For 3 hours?
He cannot. Okay, this is like really annoying to me, and this might come off as a rant, but I'm just like very triggered from this, right?
Rant away, bro. Rant away.
So I saw his post-match interview with Piers Morgan, and it's called Piers Morgan's Uncensored or something like that. And man, this guy is just cocky as fuck. Like,
what did he say? It was blatant that he was just trying to get himself disqualified, right?
He lost 6 rounds, and then so on the 6th round when he was losing again, there was supposed to be apparently, like, the bell that they have for ending the round.
Yeah.
It was supposed to happen, and he tries to do a jiu-jitsu move and got disqualified.
Yeah, he tried to grapple Logan Paul, I think.
And the fight was 6 rounds, right? Like, so this would have ended the match, anyways. It was supposed to be like 6 or 8 rounds.
I think it was 8 rounds.
Okay.
8 rounds, yeah. But the thing is, again, there's a lot of controversies because it's just some people say that Logan Paul wouldn't have succeeded because he was always on his back foot. He wasn't actually like constantly hitting. He wouldn't have been a KO, right?
I see.
And then the other side is like the Logan Paul people are saying that if you look at it, he won 6 rounds and then this guy committed something illegal. And if they would have like rung the bell, then he would have lost this round as well. And then we would have gone into round 7 or 8 or whatever. But my whole thing is, who the fuck gives a shit about them? Because both of these idiots just suck. All they do is just talk a fucking big game. And I'm not saying that I can fight them or anything like that, because that's stupid. I can't. I am like half their size. But Dillon Dannis this whole time, even on Piers Morgan's thing, was like, these boxers, they just can't fight. They just can't fight. This is post-game after losing.
Dillon
right?
said this.
Yeah,
that's funny.
He's like, if they come to MMA, if they do jiu-jitsu, where jiu-jitsu is allowed, MMA is basically open, right?
Yep.
So I would take them on. He's like, I could take on Muhammad Ali. I could take on all of these legends. He's like, it's super easy, but like, I'm like,
I think that's kind of stupid to be
the whole thing is
to
stupid.
be like, like in this thing that they haven't trained for, I got it. In MMA, they have some sort of boxing training or some sort of boxing.
Not boxing, but like some sort of a fighting experience, right?
The base sport, I would say, is probably more like boxing and wrestling, right? Like, it's the base, fighting style, I guess. And so it's weird that, like, it's just weird hearing that kind of shit talk, because you just lost a fight. Whether you threw it because you didn't want to actually lose and got yourself disqualified, so you can say, hey, they didn't let me fight the way I wanted to fight.
Yeah, but you knew when you signed up to join a boxing game
ring.
and Conor McGregor kind of trained you for that, right? Like, that's your homie.
That's your guy.
He kept sucking his dick the whole time, like.
I think it's wild that, like, this whole match was not serious. If you saw the footage, if you saw the match, it was not serious. I think for Logan Paul, this was a way to once again put his name out there and then promote Prime and promote all of his other brands.
Right.
And, just keep up with the YouTuber boxing thing that he's been doing.
Which is also something that I think is kind of stupid.
Yeah, we talked about this on the first episode, remember? And it's interesting because it's starting to come out to it's more front of mind now, because it's blatantly obvious that I'm questioning, does Dillon actually hate Logan, or is it just for the fight?
So, like, I think what I was saying was that, and then for Dillon's side of things, this was a way for him to actually get some clout and then have a career. Because if you look at his, like, overall record in the MMA and stuff, he didn't have like an MMA fight. he fought.
He won a couple of titles in jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu,
he's pretty good at jiu-jitsu. Like he's a good fighter.
It's not the MMA
like
style.
he's
But that's not MMA.
Yeah, it's not MMA.
He was not good enough to go to the MMA. This was a great way for him to, again, market himself by shit talking, trolling. He's gained millions of followers from this. People know who Dillon Dannis was, because before this, I didn't know who the fuck he was.
I didn't know who the fuck he was.
I don't think for him it was a matter of winning or losing. I think he didn't care about this fight at all. I think for him the reward was what's leading up to the fight, which was the publicity.
The reward was the money, so it's blatantly clear.
Hold on, they don't make that much money in these fights.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he on the Piers Morgan show, he actually said. So okay, let me give you some backstory here. I think there was a time when Dillon Dannis and Logan Paul kind of met up, and I think they did like a lie detector or some shit like that. I don't know. It was all stupid.
Wait, this is still on the Piers Morgan thing or before this?
No, they did it beforehand.
Are you talking about the face off or like where they talk to each other across the table or whatever?
Yeah, whatever that was. Yeah. So the deal was, if Dillon Dannis loses, then Logan Paul would have whatever Dillon Dannis made from that fight. And if Logan Paul loses, I forgot what the scenario was, but irrelevant, right? Because he didn't win. So Dillon Dannis lost. But then at one point in, I don't know, whichever interview it was, Logan Paul was asked by Dillon Dannis that, would you do this fight in like a jiu-jitsu format, like an MMA fight with me, if after the boxing match?
Yeah.
Whatever the outcome is. And Logan is like, hell fucking yeah, I'll do it.
That's a stupid fucking move.
No. But like, this is a stupid thing, right? So now Dillon Dannis lost. So Piers Morgan is like, all right, we got you this big check for Logan Paul. What's the number that I need to fill in here?
Yeah.
And are you going to give all of that money to him? Because you lost, right? That's you got to give your purse. And he's like, no. Like, I'm not going to do that. And then he goes about saying, oh, we're actually probably going to contest the fight.
How do you contest 6 rounds of losing?
I don't fucking know.
How does that work?
He's about to contest something that happened. I don't know. And like one of the things was like, oh yeah, I tried to give grab him, but he had Vaseline on his head and shit like that. I'm like, dude, stop, man. You're like game is over. Like,
I think he's one of those people that like has to like say shit and has to like. There's always a reason.
He's got to be right.
Yeah.
There's always a reason.
Yeah. So like he kept doing that, and I think Piers Morgan kind of like, and these guys, like, these reporters are really good. Piers Morgan is like a industry legend, right? So he kind of got it out of him. It's over $1 million. Like a little over $1 million. That's what he earned.
Yeah.
So Dillon Dannis is not going to give that up. I don't think he's worth that much.
Yeah. He's actually worth around $3 million. So a third of his net worth.
Yeah, he's not going to give that up. There's no fucking way. No chance.
That's the thing, right? Like, he did this to be known. He did a press tour pretty much before this fight.
I mean, he went after
podcast to podcast. He went after Logan Paul's girlfriend, and just so he could be a troll.
Yeah. And there was a lot of shit that was said.
Smart move. I mean, it's what you got to do when you don't have that presence anywhere else.
And he goes about saying that, Logan is a horrible promoter. He didn't promote shit. I did everything. I had to do the heavy lifting. I'm like, yeah, you did everything by literally picking on his girl, regardless of whatever affairs or whatever shit that she had is irrelevant to the fucking fight. Piers Morgan said something really cool, and I'm gonna go away from the Dillon Dannis side real quick and then move over to the Logan Paul side.
Wait, you were supporting Dillon with all that?
No. Like,
it's a shitty camp to be a part of.
No. This is a conversation from what I heard. This was a conversation with Dillon Dannis. Basically, what Dillon Dannis was saying is that he's the master promoter, right? And he didn't do anything. But an interesting point that Piers Morgan brought up is that, or at least someone tweeted, is that if someone was a real boxer in a real game was shit talking another real boxer's wife or fiance and just doing all of this crap, this wouldn't actually make it to the ring. There would have been a street fight and one of them would have been dead. Because things get serious.
Clever.
Real boxers get fucking serious.
Yeah.
They're not going to be fucking taking shit for promotions.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And
that's what happened with Khabib and Conor McGregor, right? So there was lots of talks in their face-offs and everything about like Conor was like, I'm going to make you drink after this fight. You're going to lose. And he said stuff about like his religion, where he's from and stuff. Khabib beat the shit out of him. And like there's video of him like, when he's beating the shit out of Conor being like, make me drink now, or like, talk this shit now. And he's getting his ass whooped. Like, he's being bloodied on this goddamn octagon floor.
Yeah.
Because like you said, with boxers and fighters, this shit doesn't fly. Like, think about it. Do you think someone like, and this happened frequently, not frequently, but this happened during the time of Mike Tyson boxing, right? His daughter passed away, and like, do you think anyone in their right mind would ever looked at Mike Tyson and
said like, shit about his daughter?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Or Floyd Mayweather, like Floyd's daughter is going through some stuff with some rapper or whatever. No one would dare to say this because it's real out there. This is a YouTube fight.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, okay, there's two different types of boxers. There's boxers who go after their bloodlust, and like they will like beat the shit out of you. They just want to fight, and they'll like, they have that raw energy, right? And then there are fighters who play it super smart, and they know the game. They know the reaction time of every single punch. They know they're very skilled.
Yeah,
so,
but this is taking it outside of that, right? Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh, this is a thing that I'm fighting for, and it whether it be clout, whether it be whatever. But then the moment you bring something external to all that into it, it becomes a street fight, right? Like, let's be real. It's a very physical and like very like grueling sport, but it's still a gentleman's sport, right? Like, there's things that are off limits.
Yeah.
And if they're brought in, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Like Floyd and Pacquiao, like Mayweather and Pacquiao, right? That was a big fight. That was like one of the biggest fights of generation. Like, they were really good in their, like, they were very established in their own field with like undefeated or close to undefeated records, right? And like there was the actual like intensity there, but after the fight they were fine. Like, they respected each other. It was a gentleman's sport, like when they saw each other.
all right, so going back to the Logan side of things, right? I saw his 1 hour podcast post-match about everything that happened, and the way they do their stupid podcast, or at least the way this guy was trying to do it, was kind of annoying. You guys know, have you guys seen his podcast?
Logan's? No.
Impulsive?
Yeah. Impulsive,
Yeah,
whatever.
I actually watched them a lot during the pandemic when they were opening like Pokemon cards.
Yeah. So Mike, who is his buddy on that podcast, one of his crew, he acted like he was asking the tough questions, and he wasn't gonna let Logan have any space to like wiggle out of it. But then Logan would say something, and then he would be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, that you did the right thing. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
I mean, it's his boy, right?
But then why act like I'm asking the hard-hitting questions that the world wants to know, and you can just answer me?
I think that's a friends thing, man.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a friends
He's
thing.
dicking
Like,
around, man.
you have to like try to ask these questions, but you're not gonna like grill your boy.
Well, so fun tidbits I found from it. So 2 days before, there was a exhibition or just something where they come out to promote or say hi or bye to each other. Probably
The weigh-in and face-off, yeah.
Face off. That's what it was. So this is what Logan says, that, hey, I didn't know that Dillon had a mic in his hand, and I had no clue. And I tossed a bottle of Prime to Dillon, and it hit him.
Shit.
But I didn't see the mic. Yeah. So Dillon's reaction is he threw the mic at Logan's face.
Yeah. I saw that.
And it nicked him. So he's like, he made it seem like that was like the biggest thing that could have happened. The trauma of it. Like, yes, he was bleeding. I'm sure he could have been concussed or something. But like, he made it seem like...
I don't think he was concussed.
No. You could get concussed from that because those mics are heavy.
Yeah. But my favorite part was Logan Paul was like, we're going to catch this predator and we're going to show the world like, what kind of a predator or whoever he is. And then he brought Chris Hansen out. He's like, oh yeah, Chris Hansen, and to help me catch this predator, I'm gonna bring out my good friend Chris Hansen. And Chris Hansen comes out on stage.
What are you doing here?
He actually said, he's like, what are you doing here? Like, he said like his key phrases and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Dillon Dannis, like, to respond to all that, he's like, fuck you, Chris Hansen. And then like after Chris Hansen leaves, he's like, I'm gonna beat Logan's ass, and I'll beat that bitch Chris Hansen's ass too.
Poor Chris Hansen's like, I was paid to show up, man.
The entire time, I'm like, why do you want to fight Chris Hansen, man?
In Logan's defense in this, not the Chris Hansen part, that's just stupid and wild.
That was fucking hilarious.
The mic part, you cannot go in with open injuries because that could like a couple of punches and he's bleeding out all over the fucking floor. Right. So you can't go into a match like that. They could have almost canceled the fight, and maybe that's what Dillon wanted.
I was gonna say all signs are pointing towards he didn't want to actually fight. He just wanted to talk that shit.
And just overall, I mean, Logan himself admitted that he's still not sure if he wants to be in this sport full time. He likes his passion of WWE. So even during the interview, like right after the game, he was promoting that Rey Mysterio, I'm coming after you. And I'm like, bro,
what?
Dillon
said this?
Logan.
Logan Paul. Yeah,
Okay.
He's big in WWE.
But this brought up like a good point that, I mean, these content creators, most of them fight people who are not real boxers. They're fighting people who are from like MMA fighters who are turning boxers or something like that. You know, like it's kind of difficult to.
For most of them, I do agree. But one person that I genuinely think is boxing well is KSI. Like he was fighting Tyson Fury's Tyson Fury, right?
Tyson Fury, yeah.
Yeah, and like who is the son of a professional boxer, and like his opponents have been mainly boxers.
So you mentioned KSI. KSI just lost his first game against the Tyson Fury guy.
Fury,
yeah, and that was pretty big on KSI. And KSI is one of those fighters that kind of goes for that bloodlust kind of a thing. He just fights. There's like, you know, I'm sure he has technique and all, but, you know, it's just very tough.
So it's actually Tommy Fury.
That's what I'm... Okay, yeah.
Tyson Fury is his father. Tyson Fury is like the acclaimed like boxing legend.
Yeah. Sorry, Tommy.
Okay.
Tommy, yeah.
So Tommy Fury.
Yeah. I think Jake also lost against him, and I think they want either... Logan to take him up next,
Tommy Fury.
Yeah, Tommy Fury. Okay. Yeah, and maybe he will win against him, and then, you know, all the YouTubers can like celebrate because they all won through him. I don't know. It's all sorts of stupid. It's more publicity than actual boxing.
That's what the YouTube game is about, or the YouTube boxer game is, right? Like you're expanding your platform. You're going to a different platform now.
Yeah. So Tyson Fury, actually, if you don't know much about him, is a wild dude. I think for me, he reminds me a little bit of, you know, like the big baller brand, like the dad. I forgot what his name was. LaMelo Ball's dad.
Oh yeah.
LeVar Ball. Because, like, you know, Tyson Fury, even now, he's like, I want to fight Mike Tyson. I'll beat him. I'll beat Muhammad Ali. I'll beat them all. I'm down. And, like, he's just this wild dude. So, like, I think he wants to get back into boxing with the greats as well.
Yeah, and it's different between hearing it from him and hearing it from Dillon, right? Because for Dillon, it's more like just talking shit and fighting with people outside of their prime. Whereas he might be actually legit, like, I just want to see what it's like to fight them.
Yeah.
Right? And get that, and get that experience.
So you were mentioning in the beginning that you saw Dillon Dannis and Logan Paul come to Andrew Schultz's podcast. Well, the funny thing is, Andrew Schultz was actually supporting Logan at the fight. He was there, and when all of this broke down. And did you guys see how like it broke down?
No, I didn't watch any of it.
So basically, like he did an illegal move, Dillon Dannis, during the 6th round, and a bunch of security people just came in because it's a big violation, and everyone's just like, oh, the security dudes are fighting each other or breaking this. There are like 20 dudes in the fucking ring.
Holy shit.
It goes crazy. And Andrew Schultz was there as well. And he was kind of scared, you know, because you don't see like 20 people, like a fight broke loose in a fucking arena.
Outside the one you came to actually paid to see.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned like Andrew Schultz because... you know, like these YouTubers going into boxing and all these stuff and like master marketers like we talked about with Dillon Dannis and Conor McGregor, right? I think there's a similar path for comedian nowadays. Like if you look at Andrew Schultz, Bo Berman, and like Akash Singh, as well as Joji. Like if
Who's Joji?
So Joji was actually a YouTube sketch writer, or like you know, he has his own like silly content that he posted on YouTube, and he went from going to that to making some comedy, and then from that going to make music.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like you shared something about music.
Yeah, like he has a song like A Glimpse of Us, and it was a song that was originally gonna go to Charlie Puth, but went to him, and it's like he's selling out concert arenas now.
Holy shit! Yeah.
And I think I've seen that trend during COVID or after COVID where comedians are branching out and having so much more exposure and power. It's like they're kind of combining with like Instagram influencers.
Yeah, and the thing is, it just shows up on Netflix and there's a dime a dozen, right? There's just so much content out there.
Not even Netflix anymore. Like, and I think Andrew Schultz is a great way of saying, a great example of that, because he actively did not sell his special on Netflix because he's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with their censorship or anything. I want to make my own money. I want to make my cut.
Yeah.
So what he did, like he in COVID times, he got very big from TikTok and all these other
social media platforms.
Yeah. Without like help of, and like, you know, went around to comedy shows and stuff like usual. And like so did Matt Rife and all of these people that you just know now. Mm-hmm. And what he did was like, hey, I'm going to post my special on YouTube and you could buy tickets to see it a day or a couple days before, and he made millions of dollars. He didn't like ever disclose how much, but he said that like I made more than I would have with Netflix.
Oh wow. Okay.
Isn't that crazy? You're making so much money on YouTube that Netflix, which has all the TV shows, movies, comedy specials, is not equivalent. Like it's not even close.
Because he also understood that, like, hey, like, I'm not an established comedian, so they're not going to give me top dollar. Like, he's not Dave Chappelle, right? And there's so much comedy and, like, just so much on Netflix that, like, my views aren't going to be that high either. Like, it's just going to be one, like, maybe if he's lucky for the first week, it's going to be on the top, trending things, and then it's done.
Yeah. Enough where people know him, but not enough where he's going to be, like, sought after.
Yeah, no one's going to be like, oh, yeah, I seen this guy on, like, TikTok. Yeah. He's funny. Let me watch like a 2-hour thing. And same with Matt Rife, right? Like this guy used to be someone that was on Wild 'N Out. Then he went from just being the pretty boy there to doing comedy and selling out shows. Everyone knows who Matt Rife is. He has a those men's health journal videos where it's like, oh, work out like Chris Hemsworth or whatever. They have one about him now.
That is so crazy. He's funny though. Certain things he says is like very funny. His I think crowd work is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like people just seem to enjoy his crowd work so much that like he goes on tour and his audience is all women. Oh. He leans into it because they think he's attractive. Yeah. So he sells those out and does crowd work. And like it was funny, this one lady had an epileptic attack during his last show, and he handled it well. He's like, everyone please give her some space. He called paramedics and stuff, and he's talking to her, and this girl is like, oh my god, this would only happen to me, so embarrassing or whatever. And she's like, do you want, like, and he was like, oh, do you want to go, like it's totally fine. Like she's like, is there anything I could do? And she's like, I would like a photo with you. And then he just like, yeah, we'll grab a photo, don't worry about it.
Yeah fine.
And then his like the lady's mom is like, yeah, if we had left she would have killed me. Because she just had like such a big crush on him, and she was just talking, and like she stayed. Apparently it was like a thing that happens to this woman because of a medical condition. But yeah, like people are dying to see him. Like there was this one time where a girl like FaceTimed her mom, so her mom could see him, and like he started hitting on her mom.
I've seen that on TikTok.
Funny.
Yeah,
right. And it's not just that. Like I think even with the old comedians, like you said with the Machine, right?
Yeah.
Bert Kreischer said that Machine story in like one of his older comedy specials.
Yeah.
And that's what like put him on the map. But going from that to like having his own podcast, I don't know if you guys have checked out Two Bears, One Cave.
No, I have not.
No, what?
But that's his podcast.
That about? That's funny.
It's his podcast with Tom Segura, the other comedian.
Yeah.
So they both have a very successful podcast, super funny, and he has his own podcast as well. And going from comedy, working his way up to having a Netflix show about lifestyles, where he takes famous celebrities into a cabin just to learn about life. And then,
man, everyone's having a podcast these
I was
days.
just thinking the same thing. I'm like, damn, dude, like we got no shot.
Yeah.
I'm like looking at the mic, like trying to break the fourth wall or something. Wink at the listeners.
Yeah. And then going from like, like a story about like, a school trip to Russia to having a movie with Mark Hamill.
Luke fucking Skywalker.
With like Luke Skywalker, and having one of like the biggest movies out there, because this movie was originally going to be shelved, but like he fought tooth and nail, did things his own way with like his premiere and stuff. He didn't want to come in like at the end, like how normal people do. He's like, no, I want it to be a party. I want people to celebrate. So I want to be there. I want to welcome everyone. I want to say hi, party with them, take photos, and do all of that. And he was just talking about like his experience working with Mark Hamill and stuff. And you could just see how like comedians now are becoming social influencers. And the power that they wield has increased so much.
Yeah.
I mean, they're becoming proper celebrities, right?
That's true.
That's true. Like think about it. Like a great comedian back in the day, right? Joey Diaz. We also have Dave Chappelle. They are some of the greatest comedians out there.
Yeah.
But like you never were like, oh my god, like I know his every move. I know exactly what he does.
The outlets were different, right? Like back then, it would all be it's all over the air, right? Like you have to watch it on a TV or something like that, or go see them live, right?
Yeah.
Pay-per-view.
Was that
pay-per-view?
Yeah, pay-per-view, right? Now you have so many different ways to watch them, like YouTube Shorts, right? TikToks, Instagram. Obviously, you can still go see them. You can, stream them wherever it is, and let's be real, there's just so many different ways to like have them in your face So they become proper celebrities in our eyes.
And I don't think that takes away from them. Like for the good ones, because like some of them are very creative. Like I don't know if you guys know Bo Burnham, but like this is someone that got big off of wine. Like I'm
really?
sure you've seen this Vine where it's like this little kid on a piano and he just like, is there anything better than pussy? Yes, a really good book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was Bo Burnham. And he went from that to conducting some of the most creative comedy specials, in my opinion, because he combines music and he makes it a whole theater. It's a musical theater comedy that he does with amazing, perfect pin drop timing.
I actually know a lot of Indian comedians who also do that, like the singing part of it. Like they'll sing and then they'll also bring in like the audience, like crowd work, and they just a bunch of elements, and they'll also end up with like doing a little bit of improv as well.
Yeah, and like I think like doing that and recording that for a special night after night, like yeah, you could tell your jokes and you could say it, and it's very hard, but then going out and performing a musical with dance, lighting, and like perfect timing,
completely scripted. Like having it down.
Right, like that's different. And I think we're seeing such a transition. I think one of the people that kind of really changed the game in this way was Kevin Hart. I think he kind of going from being just a comedian everyone liked to, oh shit, I'm a movie star. Like a juggernaut of box office.
I was actually wondering. He was a comedian first.
Yes.
And then because I actually saw him in movies first.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So
I
he was
didn't know
always
it was
in like those
stand-up
little small characters and like, you know,
he's the comedic relief, right?
yeah,
the short
yeah,
guy, right?
Like you know, like the what was it, Scream knockoffs, like scary movies, like you see him as a side character and stuff. But like no, he got his fame from his comedy specials
on Netflix.
Then
mostly.
he went to like having his own like funny comedy show on Netflix as well, like Real Housewives of Hollywood or whatever.
He has quite a few stand-ups. Like we've seen them all.
Yeah. And then like, you know, he went out from like that to movies to like selling out stadiums, right? Like he literally sold out football stadiums.
Wow.
And then even in like COVID times, he hosted a special from his own home.
I know. I mean, God, it made me so mad to watch that too, because I'm like, your basement is so nice.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
yeah, and I think he opened like the doors for comedians to try things differently while going on podcasts and stuff. And I like the power that these stand-up comedians have now and the way that they're going about it. Because like now with like Akash Singh and Andrew Schultz, right? One of the biggest podcasts in YouTube. Then you have Bert Kreischer with so many other brands, so many other things, as well as a fucking movie with Luke Skywalker. You have Bo Burnham and Matt Rife going from Vine to selling out comedy halls and concert
crazy.
halls.
Yeah. Did you know that that Bert is so what they say the whole thing is that when you're a comedian going into a movie, it actually does, like the amount of work and amount of revenue loss, all that stuff from not being able to go on tour and do your stuff is more than what you'd make from the movie, so it's actually a net loss.
Yeah.
But he's like, listen, I want to be in a movie, so I'm giving it up. But
the thing is that you do that because you have a lot more of a reach. People will go watch a movie. At least that's what it used to be. Now it's very different because YouTube is a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, but that was what he was saying. It's like he's like, yeah, like my financial advisor or whatever it was like, hey, like you could do this, but it's actually costing you money because you're gonna miss out a lot. And he's like, no, whatever. I'm gonna be a fucking movie star, right? So, and I can't blame him, right? I mean, the movie was actually pretty good. I don't know what you guys thought.
Oh no, I thought it was hilarious.
I thought it was funny. Yeah,
I think one of the funniest thing was like because of like the language barrier. Because like, you know, here we describe him as unpredictable, zany, funny, whatever. Since in Russia they don't really understand, like they take things very literally. So his co-actor from Russia was scared to work with him because he was described as unpredictable, and she's like, I don't know what he would do, and I just,
what does that mean?
What does that mean? Like, is he like gonna, like if I'm injured or something, like is he gonna fucking stab me or like,
like he's gonna punch
just
you in the
keep
face
laughing?
randomly?
yeah, and like laugh or something. So I think that was something cool, but. Yeah, again, you know, having this movie, you know, Joji having a glimpse of us, which is like a top Billboard, like number 10 on the top 100 songs of the summer.
Wow.
Being a comedian and stuff from YouTube. So I love that they're gaining so much power. And I think this is, again, in like a great way of like how people in any profession are taking back their own rights, you know, like with like, oh yeah, I'm not going to rely on big streaming services. I'm not going to rely on this corporation to be able to just
dictate how I
want to do things and get my fucking worth.
Yeah.
Right. Like even with musicians, like they're not going with labels. Chance the Rapper, he's like one of the Chance the Rapper is like, and Russell.
See, with music though, I don't understand because if you don't go with a label, your reach doesn't it decrease significantly?
But they have the distribution channels, but like that's built around the whole like get your CDs out there, get to the record stores.
So with streaming, all of that changed.
But with streaming, it's still difficult. The reason why I say that is because, well, one, you need to, like, people need to discover you, right? You can't just be like, I'm Chance the Rapper, because 100 people can come up with the name Chance the Rapper, right? So there has to be some sort of connections.
I think it's supported. But so like, you know, Chance might find the next Chance, right?
Yeah.
And give him a chance.
It's not even,
he would have to take a chance on that.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's no longer, you have like the Columbia records and all that shit, then you don't need them anymore.
It's not even that. Like even with Columbia Records and all these like record companies, it's not like you're just a nobody with 0 views and you get signed.
Yeah,
you have to have some sort of fans. You have to go out and like, you know, do concerts, quote unquote, be known in your city, and then you get signed. So these people are like, why would I get signed and give up 90% or like 95% of my revenue just so I'm backed by these people that are going to, you know.
But don't they also have contacts and don't they take up some of the cost stuff? Like
So nowadays, remember the contacts, all that stuff was all to get your name out there to different people.
Yeah.
Now, like, kind of, the whole thing's that you don't get discovered until you've already had the views and had the listens, all that stuff. And at that point, you're just kind of riding the flames. Right?
Yeah, and it's no longer a business model where you're like, oh yeah, you get features or whatever based on people you know, just or exclusively people you know, right? Now you can just send a check of $1 million to Drake and he'll do this feature for you.
Oh, by the way, sorry, throwback.
That's true.
Drake actually betted $850,000 on Logan winning the fight. And Dillon was really pissed about it because he was like, oh, I thought Drake, I was your boy. And why wouldn't you just bet on me? Well, I think Drake lost the money either way because this was a disqualification and Logan won through that. It's not a knockout win, right? So
I don't think that Drake lost anything because he seems to be making these bets, like these outlandish, like $1 million bets for a lot of like sporting events. What I think is genuinely happening is that like these sporting platforms are like, hey, here's cash, bet on it, post about it, so more people are gonna bet. It's like, you know, when you sign up for like any betting platform, it's like, oh yeah, put down $5 and you get $200 of playable bets. I think he's getting that, but just at a larger scale.
Don't you think that you would have to mention if something was a sponsored post or not?
You don't have to. You never do. You're not required to. And I think that's what makes it a really good sponsored post because people genuinely think that he's betting this money.
I mean,
it would make it a good sponsored post, but very deceiving to the consumers. 100%.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about truth in marketing. So the whole thing is that maybe the loophole is that he stakes his money, but then he gets paid afterwards.
Yeah,
it's like a reimbursement. So it's not like he's not getting paid for it; he's getting reimbursed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's like legal nuance there that you can use.
But no, I'm loving this trend of like people getting their worth, like with the music industry, with like the Writers Guild, with just, you know, influencers.
Logan Paul getting his worth.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we clearly watch him.
Yeah. So going on to the strikes now, right? I think you had mentioned the people getting money and getting paid, right? So now that the writers seem to have struck a deal, I'm wondering, and I did some research on this, around the auto workers at the big three, the Ford, GM, Stellantis strikes. And I'll tell you right now, like there's some weird shit going on there.
What's going on?
So like they're asking for money, okay? And
is that so?
They're like, hey, we want more money, right? And this is a large union.
What if this was like in an alternate universe? What if it was not about the money? They're like, you know, we're done with fucking Folgers coffee in the break room. We want Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks.
We want Green Mountain. You know, like, so this union is actually pretty big, guys. There's 150,000 of them. Now I don't know how big the Writers Guild was, but like, of the 150,000 people in the union, 35,000 are on strike, right? And let's be real, they're striking about money, but they're striking about other things, right? They want overtime over 32 hours in a week.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right? So that's weird. But that, and then I'm like, you know what? They're working in very unsafe conditions. So maybe the 32 hours is something that they need, right? They want a 4-day work week. They want, yeah. So
I want a beach house and I want.
Right? And don't get me wrong, like they're getting hosed on comp.
Yeah.
Considering how much risk they're taking on, especially the factory workers, the assembly line workers. But they also want to do a couple things, right? They want a pay increase, go figure. Because right now, on average, they're making $30,000 to $40,000.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just not sustainable, right? Like to maintain any kind of life.
See, I'm down with all of that. Like, give them a raise, but
Yeah.
I would kind of appreciate if they didn't ask for 4-day work week or 32 hours after that. Give me bonuses. That's the part that.
One thing is what I do think is playing into it is that the younger employees kind of get screwed on some of these benefits because they don't get the employment tiers are favored more towards the elders. I don't know. There's a line here that just basically says that employees hired before 2007 get different benefits than people hired after.
Yeah, it's a pension as well. So I think with them, the newer employees don't get many of the retirement benefits with pension and all these other things.
Yeah.
And they're still getting hosed on the pay.
Yeah.
There's pay disparity between the people that worked beforehand and now. Like the people that work, like I would say, let's say, before 2010, 2008, right? They still make those same wages.
That's insane.
Like
right?
they have not gotten raises, and like the newer people are getting $1 or $2 more.
Every year.
It's every year, but that's just because they started late.
Yeah.
And like these people are like, that $1 or $2 is still not mitigating the need for a pension for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Retirement.
But and you have to understand that it just these people the 4-day work week and 32-hour work week is wild, right? But many countries and America as a whole is also pushing for a 4-day work week. So like they just want to. They're like, hey, if we're asking
but longer,
for,
right? The whole thing is a 4-day work week, but you work longer on those days.
No, the people don't want to. The trend now is people don't want to live in a environment where they're required to work over 40 hours, or they're trying to work.
40 hours is 5 days.
No, but like they're trying to reduce the work week to 32.
Yeah, 32. I thought the whole thing was like in Japan. They do a 4-day work week, but it's like 10 hours a day on those days. But maybe
like
I'm wrong.
with these Ford workers, like
Do you take a dinner and lunch break? How does this work?
Right? Yeah. Where do you start? Where do you end?
with these Ford workers, right? Just to make ends meet, these guys are working 80 hours a week.
It's insane.
Right?
It's insane.
So they're doing overtime. They're not getting good pay just to earn enough in dangerous environments. Because Ford, GM, and Stellantis, sorry, has been dinged multiple times for unsafe work environments. And these guys are like, I'm literally breaking my back 80 hours a week.
And that's just to make a livable wage, right? Their whole thing is, so here's where it's gonna piss you guys off, right? So obviously in the COVID times, right, like there was a drop off in production, right, because the factories, you just couldn't work for a while, right, because of the pandemic. So, but in that time still, so I'm gonna use 2022 as an example here, right? The Ford, GM, and Stellantis CEOs, they each made over $20 million.
Oh yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, like the vast majority of that is in like shares or something like that, but there's still a large bonus component, which is about 2x their salary.
So
Their salaries are $1 million more, or $1 million plus.
Yeah, so the CEO is making 300 times the salary of a regular worker. The Ford CEO made $20 million, and the GM CEO made $29 million, which is a 50% increase from 2013, where he made $14.4 million.
Yeah, I will say this, percentage-wise, from like in general, right, compounding interest, all that kind of stuff, right? That's not crazy, but when your workers that are operating below you are not seeing that same level of increase, that just sends the wrong message, especially when you're an American company, you represent the American dream, right? Like, let's be real here, right? Ford, GM, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's what they had in mind. And it's just insane. But
because I think the CEO salaries kind of make sense because, obviously there are hundreds of layers, right?
Yeah,
in
but
between.
there's also one of them, right? There's one CEO. But you have, I think there's, right, like the number of the union is 150,000.
Yeah, so obviously they're not going to be paying $29 million or even like 1/4 of that, right?
But there needs to be a divide, right? Like 300 times someone's salary.
I think
when
that's
these workers
fine.
are making they're doing 80 hours just to make ends meet.
Yeah, but the CEO is responsible for all of those 150,000 people, right? So you have to think about it from that perspective too, and the responsibilities that come with it.
I think that's a very idealist view of looking at it. I think that of course the CEO should get paid more than regular workers, but the problem is the divide. 300 times the wage is not like if we're talking about millions of dollars here, and here's some numbers, right? In like 10 years from now, 2013, right? Ford's net worth or net income was 5.6 billion, and General Motors net income was 3.8 billion, right? Now in 2022, the net income for Ford rose to 6.5 billion, and then General Motors went from 3.8 to 10.4 billion. So you're seeing all these rise in net income. I'm not even saying like revenue. I'm saying net income. The CEO's salary is going up by millions of dollars, and these workers have not gotten any pay raises.
So I have a couple of things to say about that.
These hundreds of thousands of workers that are making this possible.
So
I have a couple of things to say about this as well. Yeah. So what I would say is, one, I'm not saying that the workers should not be getting paid more. I'm 100% on it. But the 300, like emphasizing on that 300x number is the problem that I'm having, because let's say I double the number, right? Like let's say the lowest employee makes is 40,000. Now I'm gonna make it 80,000. It's still gonna be like high 200s, even if I double that guy's salary, right? And even if I salary, so you're not gonna be. So are you suggesting that we lower the CEO's salary so we can get closer to like lower that 200x number? Or are you suggesting that
maybe? But my whole thing is, a lot of the comp is not straight cash. That's the whole thing. Like I would say 20 to 25% of it's cash.
So yeah. I was talking about their salaries. This does not include like RSUs and stuff. This is like
but the salary is not 29 million is not their salary.
Yeah, like salary is total comp.
The GM CEO made 29 million in total comp. Of that, 25 million was cash salary and bonus.
Yeah, and also the other thing is, the salary of a CEO is not always determined by the CEO himself. It's determined by the board of directors, and the board will determine it based on the stock price, right? Because he's like, the CEO is responsible for basically driving that, right? Or at least getting the company there. Yes, the machinery is like, the parts of the machinery is the workers, but like from a stock market perspective, if you look at it, it's mostly driven through the CEO's public image.
But the other thing is this, I like that you brought up the numbers, because I want to lay out some numbers here too. And so the biggest number that analysts and everything look, and I don't want it to be like an earnings rundown here.
Yeah.
But like there's some numbers, and I promise there's a reason. Okay. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Yeah.
And it's a very important metric to determine a company's profitability, right? So the EBITDA, and I'm gonna pick on Ford here, went up 22% from 2021 to 2022, and it went to 12.8 billion. Okay. Now 12.8 billion is a large amount of money. I get it. Now, the other thing is this: the average revenue of the average sales price of a car also went up from 35,000 to 38,000 at the same time. Okay. Still, all signs pointing towards let's pay these people, right? But the thing is, the EBITDA margin, right, which is looking at it as a percentage of revenue, was almost at one of its lowest levels in 2022. It was at 8.9%, which is tiny. And the revenue growth, or EBITDA growth, was, if I do the actual number to get to 12.8, is 2.3 billion. Now, if we wanted to increase, and these people, like, they want 46% salary increase, right? So if we increased, and there are 57,000 UAW workers at Ford, right? And they're obviously it'd be for everybody, right? So if you went from Ford and assumed a $40,000 average salary, and you increased it by 40 to 45%, you're literally adding $1 billion in cost.
So here's what I want to address with that, right? Like, the numbers make sense, the numbers speak for themselves, right? But when you look at things like the pay disparity is what I was getting at. I know you guys had like a problem with, not a problem, but you guys were talking about the 300 times the number, right? But and you're saying like, oh, how important the CEO's job or whatever it is. And of course it is.
I'm not saying the other worker's job is not important.
My whole 300 times X, right? Because if you're saying like, oh yeah, the company's working, it's stable in the economy and all that stuff. But if it's achieving those numbers based on, exploiting their workers, is it really understandable?
You're thinking of this as more from workers' rights, and everyone should be paid fairly and equally, and the good-heartedness in you is speaking right now. But from a numbers point of view, right, it doesn't make sense, because even if I triple these people's salary, they will still, and we're talking about 150,000 people, there's still the pay disparity between them is going to be about 250x, which is still wild. So what is the issue going to be? If you have an issue with 300, you're going to have an issue with 250 as well.
Yeah, the question is what is that like? Should this be a relevant metric?
I don't think it should be.
Because
I think it should, right? Like the biggest thing with
but now if let's say Ford has a record year. Now, And let's be real, like let's say like it's something that the CEO had to do, right? Because CEO makes a lot of decisions. I work, like I've seen what they've needed to do to make this work, right? And there's a lot of risk attached to it too. Like you mess up, you lose your job. Whereas if a factory shuts down, which I don't know how often that happens, that's the only situation where like these line workers, and obviously if they get hurt, of course.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. Like these workers are clearly exploited. They have I do think the CEO is gonna make more than the lowest worker. But like your whole thing was like, oh yeah, even after this, it's gonna be $250. You're looking at it like that's still better. Right?
No, obviously it is. And I think no one is against.
But is that good enough, right?
And
what's the number? What's the justifiable number for you?
Maybe it was $400 to $500 before, and now it's at $300. Like, is that progress? I didn't do that number.
So the reason I had all these numbers up with like how much the company made with the profit and how much CEOs made, right, was because we know that these workers' salaries have not gone up. Their last raise that they got was in 2019, where they got a 3% raise.
Basically, yeah. So I think my issue is now with obviously people should be getting paid more, and those workers definitely deserve probably 4x of what they're getting paid right now for putting their life on the line and all of that stuff. Not realistic, because obviously companies can't run like that, and especially increasing everyone's salary by 4x, 150,000 people.
There's
right?
so many of them, and in making 160,000 each.
Yeah,
4x did.
Yeah.
But it's to get it to a livable wage. That's the whole thing.
160
right?
is not the livable wage, but you know what I mean. Like even what I'm trying to get at is
it's not gonna be 160 because they're asking for better working conditions, right? They're not asking to work those 80 hours anymore.
40,000 adding 40% gets you to about 60, right? So that's not terrible.
That's not bad. And I'm in support of that, but I'm just against the multiplier.
Yeah, individually, like at the individual level, it makes sense. Like that 60,000, 55,000, whatever it is not an unreasonable salary to give people. Maybe that means that you have fewer workers now, right? Like you might have to, having 57,000 workers getting this $15,000 raise is going to be wild, but you probably have to cut.
You're going to have to cut some workers, and we're seeing that, and it's gonna be to maintain their profit margins or whatever. But like, and the thing is, for me, personally,
at that point, it might be to maintain profitability.
Yeah, but like, that's where the ethics of it all comes in, where it's like, in order for you to be profitable, you have to exploit your workers. That's my problem. I mean, yes, right? I think everyone, not even ethics, it's just like in general, like there's a business, like there's lots of things with business, and ethics is one of them.
I have a question for you, because you're talking about ethics. You said that it would be okay if they have to let go of a few people, like some of the workforce, because they're giving the rest of the people that $60,000 raise, right? So now, isn't that unethical? Because now all these people who got let go are making $0 in front of that, from 40 to 0. And the second part to this is, because you're doing that, the work is not decreasing. The work is still staying the same. So these people who are getting these raises, who are already overworked, and that's what they're calling out.
No, what happens here is this, right? What happens, and let's just think of the downstream effect here, right? So yes, you have fewer workers. You can't work faster, right? That's the whole thing. You can't work faster. There's a classic Charlie Chaplin skit about this, right? Yeah. And so what happens is production comes down. You produce fewer vehicles, right, as a result. And then the car price goes up because there's less supply. So it pays for itself in some way, but in the end, let's be real here. Not like.
But then sales go down too, right?
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is that your sales go down, but your
profit margins,
right? That's what I'm saying. Your production comes down, therefore your sales has to come down. But the cost to buy that car for us goes up.
Yeah, but I think
it makes up for itself somewhere.
I also think that I agree with that, but I also think that with just the industry theme or trend where everyone's asking for a livable wage, something's gonna give. And once and you have to understand, there's power in numbers, right? Once the consumers are like, I'm not paying for this, and if the only way for you to give a livable wage to your employees and make the same amount that you want is met by taking the clothes off my back, they're not gonna go to the company anymore. And we're kind of making Ford and GM to be these innocent companies.
No, they're not.
You have to understand.
They're not.
You have to understand.
They're this big for a reason.
Yeah. You have to understand. This year itself, they willingly lost $4.5 billion in EV sales. They knew they're not profitable. Every EV car you purchase from Ford, they're losing $32,000 per EV.
Wow.
I mean,
and they're willing to do
sense,
this.
Though.
They're willing to do this just so they could still be relevant, still put their name out in the EV field. And so is General Motors. General Motors is also doing a similar thing. And this is their way to combat Tesla.
I mean, all of them are, right?
But like
that's
if
the competition.
if you could justify losing 32,000 per vehicle sold, 4.5 billion just this year.
How are you? Wait, hold on.
No, it's true. I read that number too.
Yeah, so it's just like, how are you losing that much? Is it costing them that much to make these cars?
Yeah, these batteries cost a lot of money, and the tech behind it also. So they protested this technology, EVs in general, for a long time. They're like, general public is just not going to jump on it. But then Teslas came around, and Teslas did a really good job with the speed part of it and the tech part of it. And I think that's what's selling it to people, right? If you see there's a decline in luxury car market over the last few years because these luxury cars weren't supporting things like Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and that's what people want. People want this cool tech in their car. It's easier. It's all the same ecosystem. Google started their own function, whole thing about Android Automotive, which is like companies don't need BMW, Volkswagen, and Volvo, and basically anyone who adopts to it, even Polestar, they don't have to create their own infotainment system. So that software doesn't need to exist. Google will provide you that software. You just have to skin it to whatever you want it to look like.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty cool.
And then I think Apple released...
Apple's trying to do something like that.
Yeah, something like that, where your iPhone can power the whole dashboard, which personally scares the crap out of me because my iPhone ever bugs out or heats up or whatever, and my speedometer is gone.
There's probably a fail-safe where if something crashes, it defaults back to the cars.
But imagine middle of the drive, something crashes and it's defaulting back, and you just see a flip of UI, and that's kind of scary as hell.
And let's be real, hopefully next 15 years or so. I don't know. I just made up a number here. We're just. We're not driving the car ourselves anymore.
Not even phone. I don't trust the USB cables, man. I run through 3 of them a year. What if they mess up and I have to jiggle the cable I could get my speedometer?
It's over Bluetooth. It's wireless.
Oh, okay. But no, that's what I'm saying, right? I think with back to the Ford thing, if your company is making profit based on exploiting their workers, I don't think it's a company that I should really feel bad for. Yeah. We looked at the numbers and their EBITDA and all that stuff is very marginally thin, but still seeing that year over year, if you're going to justify giving a 50% increase just to your CEO over the last 10 years, and this is millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So how do you justify that? And I think that's why I stand with the workers, and I think that's something reasonable, because if you're hey, I don't have enough money to give to these people, but I was gonna give a $15 million raise to the CEOs while the EBITDA is being the same and it's marginally thin, I just don't feel bad for you.
I understand your thoughts. Yeah. So I would kind of wrap it up, and I'll ask you your opinions on this as well. So my ending closing thoughts on this would be, yes, I am with the workers. They should definitely be getting paid more, but millions of dollars to one person, even if it's $15 million for one person, is not gonna trickle down to 150,000 employees getting a big raise, so I don't kind of equate that, but I do think that the working conditions themselves are pretty bad and they should be improved, and also they should be getting a higher pay. I mean, 40,000 in this day and age is nothing.
That's wild, right?
For working 80 hours a day.
You're not combating
80 hours a week. Sorry.
You're not combating inflation at that point, right?
Yeah.
So my final thoughts on this too is just so this has already cost automakers $8 billion, this 30+ day strike. So I think regardless, something needs to happen, right? Otherwise, they're really at risk here, and they're already laying off people, that kind of stuff. I will say, right, $1 billion increase in costs to pay these workers when you grew your EBITDA by 2.3 billion year over year. And if you do think that that's going to continue, I think it's time to strike a deal, man.
Yeah.
Right? And let's be real, I get it that you have one person making 30 million, but then you have 100,000 people making 40 to 50. You've got away with it long enough. I'm gonna use the word getting away with it, but it's been going on long enough where you're due for a reset.
Yeah.
And the reset's up.
And we could genuinely talk more about this, with the I think it's a great trend of the classes fighting back, I would say.
But what if we didn't? Instead, what if we talked about a what if scenario that would blow our mind?
I don't know if it's going to blow your minds, but I got a couple I got a few good ones.
I'm excited.
I cancel the segment. It's done. If it's not going to blow my mind, why are we doing this?
You know what? That's it. All right, we're done. See you guys now.
What if we never did it?
I half believed you, and I was like, oh my God, are we done? Is this it?
Is this it?
I did some work on this.
He's like, get out of the studio. We're done.
So these are quick ones, all right? My first one, I'm going to reiterate it again. It's a quick one here. But what if you could travel back in time and give one warning to any individual? Doesn't have to be someone you've known or have any way of knowing. What would it be, and who would it be to, and also why?
I love chaos, so I would go back into like the revolutionary time, and I would just be like, hey, Paul Revere, British aren't coming. And just go back to my time to see what happened.
Oh my God.
Like, oh yeah, they're coming by sea or land. They're like, they're not.
To if by sea.
Yeah,
what if by land?
They're not coming.
That's not bad. I like that one. All right. That's a good one. That was a really good one. So I guess I can go next then, right? So I haven't given this much thought. I should have, but my whole thing was I'd want to give a warning to. It's funny because it's in the same theme of like preventing or aggravating a war. Was to what is it? Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Oh yeah. World War One.
And been like, hey, this ain't the day. Stay home, bro. Stay home.
Yeah, or the Kennedys.
Yeah, there's a whole thing about how with the Kennedys, there's a whole conspiracy theory about how it was going to happen anyways. He was there. He made all the lists, and basically he was like kind of outing. I forgot what let's just call it the New World Order.
Yeah, I believe it was the CIA. Like the theory CIA, is like he was outing what the CIA was doing, so that's why like they ordered that hit.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you guys have some really good ones. Mine is pretty selfish and self-contained. I would go to 2019. I would tell myself not to watch Game of Thrones season 8.
Man,
just don't do it.
It's like the Flash at the end of like the movie when he zaps in, but it's you. You're like, don't stop,
stop it, Bruce.
Yeah. My other one was gonna be. I had two other ones. It was gonna be go back to 2007 and tell myself to stop messing around in second grade and buy some Bitcoin,
buy property,
or buy some real estate. Yeah, or go back.
Imagine the 2007 8-year-old you coming up to your dad and just being like, hey dad, I think we should buy property. Why do you say that, son? Because I told myself.
Right. What okay.
And the other one for me was this would have been like a really cool thing to just see. Go back to like Pompeii before like the volcano exploded.
Oh, that would have been cool.
And like just run random kids, save them, and be like, hey, I'm gonna show you something cool.
There was a whole Doctor Who episode around it.
Oh yeah,
Fires of Pompeii.
The city of Pompeii. That was one of the old wonders of the world, right?
Yeah.
It was okay.
It was beautiful.
I mean, like the Gardens of Babylon, man.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
I think like just be like, yo, let's from this major hilltop far away where we could just oversee what's going on. Let's watch. Just grab some popcorn.
But what do you think would have happened? I mean, I don't know why I'm asking the what if question, but what do you think would have happened if, let's say, you went back and saved that whole town of Pompeii from their volcanic eruption? Like, what do you think? How would it have changed history? Would it have actually mattered? Do you think like it would trickle down and like created like?
So the thing is this, it's and I agree. It would only be is if somebody significant came out of that.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. And the problem is there's so much entropy from then until now that like it's hard to gauge. And that's why like
someone's descendant could have been the next Hitler, you know?
Right. So that's where it gets a little hazy.
But then we also like whenever we think about things like this, we always think of the negative side of it, that another Hitler could have been born. Yeah. But what if another Einstein could have also been born?
What if the guy or girl or whoever who was coming up with a cure for cancer
just died
was a descendant of that person, and you know what? That entire storyline got cut.
So the whole thing with Pompeii and why it was significant, why I think it would trickle down, was because it was the perfect example of Roman life, like from architecture to like information. Yeah, they had like a very big Roman architecture community and history.
Yeah. Art community. Art community was big there.
Art, yeah, right? So all of that was wiped away. All that information, all that culture. I think if it had survived, if people had survived, that would have impacted the world greatly. Even with science, right? Like, unfortunately, like as we've learned with like great tragedy, afterwards the science, there's lots of advancements. For example, like if you guys have seen Oppenheimer, I know you guys have. We watched it together, right? After the nuclear bomb, Japan completely changed.
Yeah.
Right? And like just scientific advancements with the H bomb and all of that completely revolutionized science and our learning as a whole. So people back in the Roman days seeing volcanic eruption, learning from it could have also trickled down.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of a stretch, but I get your point. Like there's endless opportunities or possibilities of what you could have learned there. Right?
Yeah.
All right, so here's another one. Actually, that went on longer than I thought it would, so thanks for that. What if, this one I really want to know the answer properly. What if you could learn the answer to one of the secrets to life, or like one of the big questions? You know? For an example I have here, and now you can't use it, is like, what is the meaning of life? Why are we here? What's the reason we exist?
So you're asking what I would ask and why?
Get an answer, if you can get the answer to it.
To be 100% selfish, if I like the whole world knew that like me as an individual have the opportunity to ask one question and it'll give me the right answer. Just being selfish, I wouldn't ask an important question. Like I would literally ask something stupid like, oh, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Because like for me,
was that right about that argument with my brother?
Or yeah, like some like, oh, should I really have dumped that girl, or some dumb shit, right? Because I don't think it would enhance my life. I think with that knowledge, like that old saying where it's like the head that wears the crown is the heaviest. I think that's what it is, and that's how I see it. Knowing this information.
Never heard that phrase, but that's pretty cool.
Right. Okay. I think I butchered the saying, but it's
it's right. It's accurate. Yeah.
Right. I think it would be too much for us to know.
Okay.
Just without with information, you kind of build up to it. Like even with science and stuff, you build up to things. You get a little nuggets of truth.
And sorry, I want to add one thing. It doesn't need to be a philosophical question.
Yeah, right? It could be anything. It's like, oh, did the Big Bang happen, or like something like that. Yeah. And that's kind of what makes me think that I don't want to, because I wouldn't be ready, and neither would the world.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do it for the world. I would do it for myself.
So you're just gonna be an asshole.
It's a common theme here, right?
Yeah.
You're just gonna be an asshole. It's like, I know, but I will never tell. He's just like laughing in the corner.
Well, this was the whole thing about the enlightenment, right, of Buddha. Like, I think that's the whole story, that Siddhartha actually gained the answer to everything through meditation and peacefulness, and then he knew the secret of life, and he tried to give it in his blessings or something. Maybe I'm butchering this whole religion, but
you are. So Siddhartha Gautam, I believe was his name. Buddha actually went out, like he left his royal life. He gave up everything and walked around like a beggar. And he had so many people that followed him that he shared his teachings with. It was never gate kept. He was
No. I'm not saying there was that, but I'm saying that. So my question would be the opposite, where I don't think I am knowledgeable enough, or anyone would like kind of want to listen to it. I mean, we barely have any podcast listeners right now. So I don't think people would be interested in if I have something to share. So I would ask a question for myself, and that question would be, how was the universe created and how will it be destroyed? Because that would be something that I'm really fascinated about. And like, I don't care about if there's, like, I strongly believe that there is life on other planets.
Because it has to be.
The universe is so ginormous that I would never imagine that we're the only ones.
What makes us special?
Yeah. We're just a speck of sand on the beach, right? Like
I genuinely thought you're gonna go a different direction with it, where you're gonna ask like a personal question, and I think that would have been more of a mind fuck. Like let's say you're asking this question. Let's say it's to an all-knowing chair, like fuck it, the Mobius chair from DC, right? If you guys don't know what that is, it's just a chair that has all the information and all the power.
I mean, it's just basically a big library with internet.
Okay.
Whatever, right? Let's say I get to ask this all-knowing thing that's watched over time and space and all of it. Imagine if I had, or someone ask a personal question like, oh, how to live a happy life?
That's not a personal question. That's
or like, how would I be happy, right? And that would fuck with your mind, because like, what if it's something like, oh, you asked the chair how to live a happy life, and it's just like,
don't be a bitch.
Yeah, no, or it does something,
or like something doesn't make sense. Like what is the answer to the ultimate question, right? It's like 42.
Yeah, right. Like if it's or if
like,
it's
what's the question? This will take forever, dude.
Or if it's just like, oh yeah, eat right, like eat, sleep, and smile. At that point, you're left with, fuck, I do this. Is this the happiest I'm ever going to be? Is this the limit? And then you have all these
You could ask about your threshold of where you are versus where you can be in life.
You ask one question.
That's not bad. But yeah,
that is a question, right? That would be the question.
Right? But like, I'm just saying, like, if it's that simple, everything, like you ask a question of like,
that's a mind fuck though. Again, also,
yeah.
Right? You're like, where are you versus your potential, right?
Potential capacity.
It's like you're at 49%. It's like, okay, cool. I now know this.
But now what do I do to
How do I
get to
get
100?
there? You know,
one
like,
question sucks.
And that's why like these things always, like, I have a very pessimistic view on it, where I'm like, it's all of these things are more of a monkey's paw for me. That's why I won't ask questions. I'll just be like, oh, Tootsie Pop.
It's got to be something. It's got to be something. Because let's be real. Like you get the answer, and mine was like, the way I was thinking of was, what, is there a God? And let's say I get the answer, and the answer is no. How am I going to convince others? Or do I even want to convince others?
I don't think you want to convince others.
The way I think about it is that all this does is frees like me up to be like, hey, like there is no higher power. So whatever time I dedicated to worship whatever.
But
God,
wouldn't that be chaotic?
For you personally, it would break, because all sense of morality is like normally like in teaching.
Societies are built
based on these teachings from a higher power, and you're like, holy shit! Like, I know what's right is right and
wrong is wrong, but like still, like, why am I following this? Why is it right?
Yeah.
Or why is it wrong?
Well, it all becomes very self-serving, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm nice to this person because I want them to be nice to me.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe they're a God-fearing person, and I can not take advantage of that, but like leverage that and be like, hey, like, you know, assume that they're nice to me, even if it's not just because I'm nice to them. It's like to like self-serve and get a place in heaven.
And what
also,
about
even if I knew like the answer to all of these questions, I cannot keep it in myself, like in my stomach. I would just
you gossip a lot.
Yeah, I would just gossip about this.
But no, the thing is, right?
But like no one would believe me. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing, right? Like you have this answer. No one's gonna believe you. Like you said, right? Society is built on a lot of this stuff, and I mean, let's be real, right? Pilgrims and all that stuff came to here, America, for religious freedom.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of expansion, all that kind of stuff in the name of God, right?
Yeah.
The Crusades.
But like,
guys, this is gonna really fuck with my head. So I'm just gonna keep thinking about it. Thank you for that.
Do we have time for one more?
No, I don't think so. Maybe we can save it for the next time.
Okay, no worries. Well, guys, 7th episode in the books.
1 episode per day. If we have any new listeners, you have some content for every day of the week now.
Yeah, thanks for joining in, everyone.
All right, see you guys.
All right, let's hit the hay.